It's a verse that was read, but purposely ignored. Next on Table Talk. Welcome back. Was I even supposed to do that? I don't even know if I was supposed to do the.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with theme song in between. Do we have an opening stinger?
I don't know. Since we started this video thing last week, I'm not sure what our protocol is. Let me ask off camera. We have the voice of Gothard.
Hello.
Yeah. How are we doing, Alan, on that intro on the video thing? Do you know what we're going to be able to do on that?
We're going to cut it up and we're going to put it in and make it flow.
Okay. All right.
This can't be the actual opening.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is, because I'm Kyle Gatlin and you are
Nick Shepard.
All right. And the voice you heard was
Alan Gothard.
Yes, yeah.
From off to the side, his little tech booth.
He is off camera making sure we all sound good. And he is the voice of reason that will intersperse whenever asked. So thank you, Alan, for being here. And behind the camera is Juan Sapiro, who has no microphone. So this is probably the only time that we'll ever have the opportunity for Juan not to be able to speak. He's having to stay silent on this one. That's one of the few times that ever happens, by the way. So
he's behind the scene. His job is behind the scenes. What do you mean?
Oh, but yeah, he talks all the time, though.
Oh.
So we give him a headset and everything.
Fair point. He's talking to somebody.
So, all right. So, hey, Nick, you actually listened to this week's sermon, I believe, at least once. And then
twice, actually.
You actually did twice?
To the front row, staring at you the whole time.
Okay. That doesn't mean you're listening. So, because many years I would go sit through 2 or 3 services and only listen to one. So
I'm too ADHD, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, not to pay attention to the thing happening that everybody's looking at.
Okay.
Right? Like I can't kind of be in my own world. I mean, I guess I could. Just bring a magazine or something.
Well, so I'll bring a notebook. I used to bring a notebook. I still bring a notebook because I'm making notes. Like if I see something I want to remember to mention to Juan or Alan or Trey or Laura Grace or somebody like that, I'll make notes, right? And so back in the day when I was listening sometimes to 3 messages on a Sunday morning, I would bring notes. Now, half the time, I've already listened to it once or twice already. So by the time the third time comes along, I'm actually making notes of something else. Yes, well, it looks like I'm taking notes on the sermon, but I'm really not.
So you may have, and this is for our community, so why not? I get a lot of questions about what I do during services, not only here, but like during youth, because I've always got a notebook in my hand and I'm pretty constantly scribbling.
Yeah,
I've just come to the conclusion that just like in your head prayer just isn't for me, and so I'm pretty constantly doing like the dialogue with God thing, some notes, some whatever. The first time I really did this in front of people was at Wired with students.
Yeah.
And they thought I was taking notes on their behavior to get them in trouble later. And I was like, no, I love you and I care about you. I don't care that much about what you're doing right now. Like, this is me and Jesus.
That is great.
But no, you did have my full attention.
Yeah.
For, and how long did you preach?
Yeah, I don't know.
For an hour.
I have no idea.
Sunday.
I have no idea.
Talking about Parable of the Talents in the beginning of this
sermon
series has a wild name.
And I'm not going to go there, but the verse 30 that it was read, I know it was read at both, I think it was read at both services, but I never dealt with it. Okay? Because what happens, all I dealt with was the guy with one bag lost it. It was taken away. If you don't use it, you lose it. And that was the idea. But what happens after he loses it, Jesus says this in verse 30 of chapter 25 of Matthew, and throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, I purposely didn't go there because, first of all, we're not sure exactly what that is. Because it's been interpreted 3 different ways, truthfully. And so I
grew up with it meaning hell, and it wasn't until fairly recently that I engaged with it again and think, oh, that's not necessarily what's happening there.
No, because when you look at, again, you look at the context, and you always have to look at the context of any story, any verse, whatever. Look at the context. This context was the kingdom of God. Jesus' teaching is boom, 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 chapter 24, 25. Context was kingdom of God. And so the next story is the story of the sheep and the goats. And you know what happens there at the end of that story? Though the goats, they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous have eternal life. So that's different language. Even within the same context, right?
Even in the context of a parable, if you're not familiar, it's Jesus saying, when the Son of Man comes back in power. So this is like apocalyptic, like end of the story, right? These guys are getting put over here, these guys are getting put over here, and then there's eternal consequence for that which they do. You're saying Jesus doesn't there use the language weeping and gnashing of teeth.
That's correct. Okay. Yeah. So obviously there's something different.
There's a distinction.
There's a distinction for some reason, but a lot of people, and I'm like you, growing up, I'm going, oh, weeping and gnashing of teeth outside, the darkness. Yeah, that's got to be hell. And I think if I remember the story right, I heard this years ago, that outside of Jerusalem was a place called Gehenna, I think, or whatever. And that was where technically they would take bodies and stuff like that to burn, right? It was a burn pit. It was the dump and everything like that. You had to take things outside the camp.
Yeah.
Right?
The Valley of Bones.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And
because what do you do with the bodies?
That's right.
Like,
they don't have a proper burial.
Especially in Jewish culture where cleanliness and touching dead things has weight. Right? Yeah. See, that's one of those things Gehenna gets... It's actually, and you may want to go here, but your treatment of the word talent, how we've lost the original meaning of the thing, right? Where it is a weight measurement that we've taken to mean ability, right? But like, there's a lot of things that, people use Gehenna to talk about hell. That was an actual place. One of my favorites, the Valley of the Shadow of Death. You know about this? It's a real place. It was a wadi. You know what a wadi is?
What are you talking about?
A wadi is a riverbed that during the dry season would unpredictably randomly flood. And so if you're in it, you're terrified that you're going to get washed away. And also thieves and robbers would camp out there in like the sides that wouldn't flood. So it's one of the most dangerous places you could be. But we just think it's poetic.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I mean, that's just the broader concept here is like, what of this is Jesus saying something as he's using metaphor to talk about like eternal reality versus he's in the realm of metaphor versus, hey, actually the original audience heard something that we don't because we're not them.
Yeah. And I think, I hadn't done a deep dive in this because I didn't want to take time in preparation for last week's message, but I'm going on prior readings from years ago, or whatever, that the reason there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, because it was outside the camp. In other words, it was outside Jerusalem. It was outside the religious context within the walls type thing. And so outside of Jerusalem or outside the camp, there was no order. There was no law and order, for lack of a better word, type thing. So you were literally on your own, and so you were scared. You were unprotected. On the wall.
Also, no light.
Yes,
outer darkness gets used here.
Yeah.
There weren't street lamps.
That's right.
If there's no sun, it's maybe the moon, but it's dark. Right? Like, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
So there's.
So what if verse 30, throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth? What if that's more of a wake up call? What if that is a wake up call for us that, we'll lose it, but is it also a wake up call? If we're not using it, we lose it, but is it a wake up call? And is verse 30 the end of the story, the middle of the story, or the beginning of the story? And I'm one, and I mentioned this actually Sunday, that sometimes, many times, parables have so many different layers. They're like onions.
Yeah,
got layers, right?
All right, Shrek.
Hello, parfaits have layers.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, cake. What about parfait, right? So there's different layers. So many times the parables, and I'm wondering if that's it's just you and me talking, and the voice of Gothard back there with us. That I just wondered if that possibly is one of the layers of this story, that he throws it out there, but you really don't know exactly the end of the one bag sermon. It's a story.
Well, and that's, it's funny you say that. I mean, you're not saying this. Double negatives are weird. I know you're not saying that like, oh, there's more of this story that Jesus didn't say. Like, obviously what he says is his point. But I think what I'm hearing, the point you're making is like, is Jesus telling this story in a way that means that this is a final thing that cannot be undone?
Correct. Yeah,
or is
correct.
Jesus still, even within the language that we may interpret a certain way, is Jesus making it clear that when we fail to act in a way that God's kingdom requires of us as citizens, that there are high stakes?
Yeah.
I will say I was doing some research over here, just in the background. That idea of casting out has a lot of really interesting Old Testament connotations. Adam and Eve kicked out of Eden, right? Cain,
Wasn't the end of their story.
not the end of their story.
Yeah.
Cain's a different example. Cain has to be a wanderer. We don't know what happens, but we know he goes and builds a city, right?
And he's a pretty good musical group nowadays. But yeah.
Sure. Yes. Okay. Sorry, had to get there. I have a little list here, but the idea of the Hebrew word is karat, K-A-R-A-T. Well, not because they use Hebrew letters, but
Like carrot, you just said.
no, like actually like carrot of a diamond,
That's what I'm saying. The carrot, a diamond. Yeah. That's
not the vegetable.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
There's stuff in Leviticus about if you do X, this, and this thing, you are cut off and have to be outside the community. Lepers, right? So I'm interested here.
And how did Jesus treat them?
How did Jesus treat 100%?
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
They were outside the camp.
So I wonder
But
what
They were not outside Jesus's reach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I wonder if what's being charted, especially with that precedent, like the creation story, it's central to like us, right? We all know Adam and Eve. It was to them even more so. And that idea of being cast out, losing intimacy with God, I wonder if that's at least part of the stakes that Jesus is sketching here that we miss.
Oh yeah.
Like being cut off from community, but if you weren't in the community, you had no relationship with God either. So I'm wondering if part of what Jesus is saying here is if you are, like in this parable specifically, if you are so afraid of doing anything, if you have no trust for the master, all that stuff you talked about Sunday, you are going to find yourself cut off from intimacy and connection with that community. And just the biblical language thing, weeping, gnashing of teeth, sadness, gnashing of teeth is actually a anger thing, right? And you're going to be upset about it, and you're going to be angry about it. You're going to have nobody to blame but yourself. So what does it look like to kind of explore this idea that, yes, when we fall, when we wind up sad, angry, maybe angry at God, that's not where Jesus leaves us. And there are some places where there's a reason people hear this language and say it's hell and its finality. I think what's through Revelation, but Revelation's symbolic anyways. And a lot
of metaphors there.
Arguably 90. I'm not dialoguing on Revelation. Yeah. Sorry, I've been gone there. But I don't know. I think it's at least telling that we have this tendency to read in these final consequences on things in situations where actually in reality, that's not the end of that story.
Yeah, and just I'm not even going to look into Matthew 24, but just in the context of how Matthew and the English interpreters and everybody interpreted the writings of Matthew, they put chapter 25, 3 stories there. We had the those with the lamps, right? Wasn't that the one these opened up? Yeah, the foolish.
Yeah, it's the
10
virgins who had to be prepared and bring enough oil. When the time came, they didn't have any. They had to go scrambling for it. Gates got shut. They got left outside.
Yeah, so they were left outside. And then Jesus' warning for that was, you need to be ready.
Yeah.
Keep watch doesn't mean keep looking up at the sky. Keep watch means you're ready. That's what keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour when Jesus comes back. You just need to be ready all the time. And if you take the sure the flow here at what's being ready, using the gifts that God has given you.
Yeah.
Right. And then you go on down to the last story, the sheep and the goats. Using God's gifts that He's given you also means taking care of the least of these. And it's only when you don't do that, when you haven't, obviously, you have not used the gifts that God has given you, you have not been ready, you have not used the gifts, and you have not used what you have to take care of the least of these. It's only at that point that He said, that's eternal punishment. So that's probably simplistic. It's probably not an accurate, but that's sort of the way that Matthew 25 has flowed.
Yeah,
So,
and this is not abnormal for Jesus to do.
Yeah.
This is, what's the prodigal son chapter? Luke 15.
yeah, Luke 15.
Jesus does the same thing, where it's 3 stories that build. It's lost coin.
But there was a celebration.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Lost sheep,
celebration,
lost coin,
celebration,
lost son,
and that celebration was local though.
local.
You remember that?
And the
Because
point,
He said that heaven,
Yeah.
heaven and earth rejoiced over the lost coin, the lost
yeah,
sheep, but the lost son story, there was not a heavenly celebration, but you had a godly celebration if you used the Father. Anyway, so
and
Yeah.
then focuses into, hey, actually, unlike the other stories, there's this one idiot over
That's
here
right.
who's mad about it.
yeah,
So I wonder if, I think what you said about like, okay, the increasing stakes,
Yeah.
right? As we go from the virgins, which is you didn't do your job, you missed the party you were supposed to be at. The second one, the parable of the talents, where it's, hey, there's some kind of like pretty categorical exclusion happening here. You've lost your job, you lost your role, livelihood. And then you get to sheeps and goats, and there is this eternal consequence. I do think it's telling that what changes in that third story is what you said, in that least of these stuff. And I think it's so easy to miss this, that one of the biggest and most vital ideas throughout the entire scripture is the idea of the image of God, right? Like when Jesus says, you failed to love the least of these, you failed to love me. They bear my image. That's my family. They look like me. They represent and reveal me, and you've ignored that, right? So I'm curious if there's something, I don't know, that's catching my interest, at least, of that, like, okay, yes, all the things in these stories, the preparedness, the don't get locked up by fear or comparison or disappointment. You honed into the fear, the doing nothing is not neutral thing, right? And that last one, it's like, hey, actually, the thing where we're really gonna have a come to me meeting is you failed to value the people that I value, right? And I don't know, there's something interesting there, especially when you go from talents to that, because I think for a lot of believers, our failure to take care of the least of these often just comes out of doing nothing, from neutrality.
Yeah, and as most of the, I'm not going to put a percentage on it, but a lot of time it's just not intentionally being aware. You know, and maybe it's we're so honed in on my life, what I'm doing, and we are like the racehorses that have the little things on their eyes. All we can do is see one thing. We can't see left or right. All we can see is one thing, and there inherently is nothing wrong with that, right? So
Yep.
I just used the word that I'm trying to avoid using, but anyway, many of us are taking care of our families or our kids or our in-laws or parents or something like that, and we're told to do that.
Mhm.
We're commanded to do that. But to the neglect of everything else around us, I'm not sure that's what Jesus meant. Right? So it's not bad.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not the best. It's not the ideal. It's not what He has challenged us to do.
It's a very simplistic way of living, right? It's that really, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Our friends at Wellspring, the way they articulate this is, you have to get the order I'm about to say. If you get it wrong, you're really in hot water, right? First and foremost, we're human. What it means to be human is to love. Then you are either a man or a woman. That means something. Then you're the specific person God made you to be in a way that nobody else is. And only then do like your assignments come into consideration, the responsibilities, right? I think the reason that Jesus, the way he kind of crescendos this, where the caring for other people is the most important thing, is because it goes to the heart of what it means to be human. If all we do is care about the things that we have to care about, we've actually lost part of why we exist. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just I didn't love my neighbor when I could have. It's, I have violated part of the essence of what it means to be a human being, an image bearer of God, by being so locked up in my fear, my apathy, my blinders, that I only cared about my assignments. Which is why, by the way, a bunch of people absolutely fall apart when they retire, because they have everything in their identity wrapped in their assignments. I can't take care of my kids anymore. They're off at college.
Yeah.
Well, I guess this marriage isn't helping, so we're going to get a divorce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a blue collar guy. I can't help anything. I guess I'm just going to waste away. Because you got that out of order.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The reason I go there is it seems like as Jesus has this kind of trio of parables, he's crescendoing to that, which is actually the non-negotiable has to be being a member of God's kingdom. Because that, if we're talking about exclusion from what? God's kingdom, not just eternally, but like Jesus said, the kingdom of God has come near. It's here now. You can be part of it. You're going to cut yourself off from it and be isolated. But not only that, like part of what it means to be a citizen of God's kingdom is to become fully human in a way that Adam and Eve gave away.
Yeah.
Which means love and care and responsibility, not just for the stuff we have to care about, because that's Adam's curse. You got to do the work that you have to do. And Eve's curse is you're only really going to care about the stuff that is in your home. Your desire is going to be for your family, not for the purpose God made you for originally. I don't know, I'm really intrigued by this idea that, like, first parable of the 10 virgins, what exactly are we not ready for?
Yeah.
Second one, what are we not doing with that money that we've put in the ground? Third one, what are we letting slip by just because we're not engaged with what Jesus actually has for us to do today?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, you and I've talked a lot, so we need the voice of Gothard.
Yes.
Yeah, see, does Alan have anything buzz through your mind, Alan, as we were talking and as you were halfway paying attention? So has anything popped into your mind so far?
Mainly the thing that stood out to me in the message on Sunday and through this conversation was the etymology of the word. What did you say it was? The Greek talente?
Yes, or talenton or something like that.
Talenton?
Yeah.
Etymology, by the way, the study of where words come from. But yeah, go ahead.
That just really intrigued me, and like how that origin like comes into talents and showing like how God really is gifting you these things. It's not something that is inherently in you, these talents.
And they're of great extreme value.
Absolutely. Of the
Right.
most extreme value, heavenly value.
Especially when you get into the idea of like spiritual gifts, you know that Kyle knows, and Alan, you've heard me talk about it. The spiritual gifts has been a big area of growth and like intrigue for me for about 3 or 4 months now. We kind of treat it as like to use a college metaphor, like a 303 thing, where it's like, well, once you really get into it, when really living out of the gifts and talents that God has made you specifically to represent and reveal them in a way that nobody else can, that's 101. Caring for the least of these in the way that you can in a way that nobody else can, that's not negotiable. That can't be secondary or optional.
Yeah.
If that's not part of what it means to live Jesus, to love him so much, to surrender to him as he restores us into those people we're made to be from the jump, then we're actually trying to build our own kingdoms because we're not part of his.
Yeah. So we're going to hit that verse 30 again, and I'm going to say a little bit about it, and we're going to wrap it up a little bit here today. Throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So my question is how can that person get out of that? Or can that person get out of that? And yes, that's a rhetorical question because I think we've hit around it already, right? Again, using the word that I don't like to use now.
I can take a crack at it if you'd like, but
servant outside into the darkness where there'll be weeping of gnashing of teeth. Is he by himself? Can he be reached? In this story, we don't have the answer, but I think Jesus is already there. And the reason I say that, where was Jesus crucified? Outside the camp. He was out. They could not crucify him inside the walls.
Yeah.
So they had to take him to this place that was outside the camp. So actually, Jesus was crucified in this type of place.
Yeah.
Where there was darkness and stuff.
Jesus is cast out the same way that we would be, and does that in our place.
Yeah.
So that we can have our place within the camp. This is also this language in the camp. This is Hebrews, 12, 13 language, by the way. And also these parables, you've got it written here, they exist not to educate, but to force you to a decision.
Yeah.
And to force you to process this stuff. They're in the context of a bigger ministry of the work of Christ, who finds those who are left outside and who are like, I have messed up so much, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah. And particularly I love you brought up the gnashing of teeth when you're so angry. You're like Hulk. You're so angry. And
Is it TMJ?
yeah.
I joss up. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
Teeth grinding.
when you're teeth grinding and all that stuff, and you're so angry, and you think that it's terrible or whatever, Jesus is still there with you. Jesus is still there with you, and so that's where I want to leave it today, because verse 30 is one that's been misinterpreted, and I think we've talked around it enough today. I hope everybody that's listening has a better grasp of that, because this is not the only time it's mentioned. I'm not going to go into the other places, but it is mentioned a couple other times by Jesus, either a parallel passage or another story. But for this purpose, I think we just need to hear that. We need to hear that. All right. Our talk today didn't have much to do with the big topic of our 3 weeks together right now, called munificence, which is extravagant generosity, is really where we're headed with this, and that was the purpose of the 5 gold, 3 gold, 1 gold thing. There was extravagance there, and what you do with it, and so we're gonna keep hounding on that, hitting that the next couple of weeks. Hope you'll join us on Sunday mornings as we look into a little bit of that. If you have to look up the word munificence, great, I did too. It's and hope that you'll remember it down the road as well. For Alan Gothard, I'm Kyle Gatlin, and along with Nick Shepard, thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.